Yes, that's right. It's Joe here, live for Joyrider TV, back with some more very interesting Q&A. Yeah, we've got a few topics lined up in the preloaded selection this time. And if you are watching later on, like not live, and you've got questions that you'd like to have answered, just put them in the comments below and I will respond to your questions in next week's session. Very nice. So today's hot topic is the start line. And this will be the last part in our sort of racing series of Q&As that we've been doing the last couple of weeks. So next week we'll be on to a different topic. Don't know what that's going to be just yet, but we'll see. Yeah, so this week we're looking at the start and what, you know, I've framed it in the why are you losing the start? But it could be framed as how could we do better on the start? So you could look at it in either of those ways. So I'm just going to dive straight in, if I may. I hope that's okay. Just diving straight in. So here is a typical start line. For the purpose of here and now, we've got a buoy at the left-hand side. So if you're not so familiar with racing, the start line would usually be perpendicular to the wind so that we start on an upwind course like this. We could start on either tack. So if we were feeling quite bold, we could start on port tack like this guy here, but because boats on starboard tack have right of way over boats on port tack, he would have to really have timed it perfectly and go in front of the fleet, or be ready to start having to duck behind the other boats. So we're not really going to talk about starting on port tack on this occasion, just because we're talking about how can we do it better and do it more consistently to get off the start line in a good position. And because the start of the race is a little bit of one of those make or break times of the whole race. If you get a good start, then chances are you'll have a pretty good race. If you get a poor start, like if you're back here, you're going to be in all of this dirty wind from the sails on these boats, and you're just going to gradually slip more and more behind. So getting a good start or a consistent, safe start is very important if you want your racing to be more pleasurable and finish at a better end of the fleet. So first reason that you might not be getting a good start. All right, we're moving the fleet away from the start line. We're just focusing on one boat here. So the way a start would work, apologies if this is already old knowledge, but this buoy here would actually be what we'd call, can we do something with this? Yeah, would be what we'd call the committee boat. So it'd either be a yacht or a motorboat or something similar. On that boat would be the race committee, and they would do the timing for the start and be showing flags on the various different times up to when it's time to go. So a common starting sequence would be a 5-minute starting sequence where the committee boat puts up the first flag accompanied by a sound signal at 5 minutes. And then you know that when that time has expired, you need to be crossing the line. You need to be crossing the line in the right direction, preferably going quite nicely, going fast enough, and not being in dirty wind. Sounds easy enough. Yeah, so the first reason for not getting a good start is that you're just not timing it to the start line well enough. regardless of what other boats are doing, you're not getting to the start line on time. So what we need to do is we can do this at the time of racing, but better is just to do some practice when we're out free sailing. I did make a video on this last year where all you need is one buoy or a fixed point on the water. Could be anything, could be a moored boat, although you might need to be careful just to not go too close, because people can get a bit edgy if you go too close to their boats. But all you need is one fixed point on the water that you can get to on an upwind point of sail. And what I'd suggest is have a 2 or 3 minute timer going on your watch, and with 3 minutes to go, to position yourself. So if this is our fixed point, to position yourself where you can get to this fixed point on an upwind or close reaching point of sail, and you definitely don't need to tack. So from 3 minutes onwards, or 2 minutes is fine, you don't need to tack. So if it's 3 minutes, you might be coming down like this, jibing on about 2.5, then coming up, and then stopping your boat in this kind of position. And then what we're aiming to do is to be not hitting this object, but crossing this object, which is kind of like we're making a fixed point on the water that we need to get to, which is the same as if we were trying to cross a certain part of the start line on time. And then as the time gets closer, we're just going to control our speed by either pulling the sails in to go forwards or easing the sails off, maybe heading up a bit to slow down. And we're just practicing keeping the boat as stopped as possible. So what we can do also is we can let the traveller out all the way, and that will allow the boat to be sailing slowly but more away from the wind, which makes it a lot easier to get the boat going. If you've got your traveller in, then and we want to have the boat almost stopped, then we're going to be very close to the wind, and it will take longer to get your boat going. But if you let the traveller out, the boat will sit a little bit more at an angle to the wind. So then you get to about here and you think, right, we've got 15 seconds to go. Let's slowly bring the traveller in, boat starting to nudge forwards, and then through like maybe 5 seconds, you start to sheet in the mainsail, jibbed in, and then boom, time has expired. We're in the right place. So kind of like this exercise, this fixed point that we were practicing with, we could take that to be anywhere on the start line. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the committee boat at the end of the line, because we're going to come on to this shortly, but the committee boat can get very busy with other boats, which does make it quite a good strategy, especially if you're not so experienced, to avoid trying to start at that end of the line. But we could take that fixed point to be kind of like here, a bit safer down the line where there'll be more space generally. And you could be thinking, right, 3, 2, 1, and we're off. Very nice. Thank you very much. Or, of course, anywhere on the start line, we could be imagining that fixed point to be. Does that sound okay? I think that sounds okay. So practicing the timed run to the start line, having your boat, maybe, let's say, with about a minute to go, having your boat, oh, we're still at the fixed point, which is this. So having your boat maybe 10 boat lengths with about 30 seconds to go from the fixed point. And then within that 30 seconds, just increasing your speed gradually until the last 10 seconds, you're really getting up to speed, maybe bearing off a little bit, And then if it's windy, then the goal here would even be to have the crew out on the trapeze at the time when you're passing there as the time expires. So that is number one. Sort out our timing, and that is also going to help your control with sailing slowly, because possibly up until now, when you've gone sailing, all you've been really trying to do is sail as fast as possible. But when it comes to this start line stuff, we're wanting to sail slowly, but with control, with a bit of steering, and with the ability to get the boat going forwards, you know, on cue. So, yeah, very useful to be able to do that. One exercise which is commonly put into place at the Wild Wind Sailing Holidays Sailing Camp of Excellence is what they call the secret start, where basically within 30 seconds to go of the timer expiring, the guy on the committee boat, on the committee boat, could just say start now or blow a whistle, and that means you've got to go at any time, which means holding your boat closer to the fixed point or the start line. And then maybe if you're sailing a boat with a crew, the crew can put their helm under test, just have the jib sheeted in ready, and at any point within 30 seconds, the crew can just say, go. And then you've got to go without as much warning, which just means you've got to be closer to the line as a training exercise. So that is number one, not being on time. Once again, I've written notes. It's not too many. Should be all right. All right. Second one is not being in the front row. So this is really another, this is going to go like, I've done this in order of importance. So being on time is number one. And then that is going to help you to be in the front row. So if we assemble our starters again, be nice if I had one a different color, really, wouldn't it? Yeah, that's maybe that's coming for 2025. Yeah. All right. So if we've got our start line lining up, and the start line is in theory should be 1.5 boat lengths long per boat, which actually makes it much wider than it needs to be to fit all of the boats on the start line at the same time. But you can't always find that gap. There might be a bit of a gap somewhere where you can't really see. Like if you're down here, you might not be able to see this gap here. So not being in the front row means you're back here where you're getting dirty wind even before the race has started. If we're in that dirty wind at the start, we're just going to, like I said earlier, we're going to start dropping back more and more. And we're going to lose touch with the fleet very quickly. Or there might, of course, be other boats which didn't quite make it to the front row. Sad times for everybody involved with the not being in the front row. So how do you get in the front row? I think if you're relatively new to competitive sailboat racing, then what I would suggest is getting into a position quite early. Again, this is going back to our exercise that we've been practicing. So getting into position quite early, like 10 boat lengths back from the start line with about 45 seconds to go, let's say, you'll usually have a big crowd of boats in this area and maybe a few that have gone down the line to start the pin. So this is you, and you have to protect your position. So if you can't see the committee boat, that means you're definitely not as far up as the other boats. Like if you look at your line of sight here, you can't see the committee boat, which means you can move forwards a bit more just until you can start to see the committee boat. Again, we're going to come on to doing this more accurately as we go on. But what we have to make sure is if we're there, we're not just sitting there letting the other boats pull in front, and then before you know it, we're just taking a load of dirty wind. So if the other boats are moving forwards, we have to move forwards as well. Even if we feel that we're getting a bit close to the start line, if everybody's doing it, if everybody's early for the start, we either have to assume one of two things, is that we haven't judged where the line is particularly well, or there's going to be a general recall. But either way, we can't take the risk to be in all this dirty wind before the start. So we have to be moving up with the rest of the boats, and to not have that ability, to have that ability to stay with the other boats, we need to get to the start line reasonably early. So 45 seconds is a good time to do that. And then if something happens, like if you've completely mistimed it and you found yourself over here, by the way, one big one is with, I did say it earlier, but with 2 minutes to go before the start, make sure you're not in a position where you're going to have to tack, sort of like down here, because you're going to be in all this dirty wind. Sometimes tacks don't go so well. I've noticed this in the past. And you are setting yourself up for a poor start even before it's even getting close. So be to the right hand side, and then if you have left it late and everyone's lining up, then what you can do is just sail behind the other boats and look for a hole in the start line, and then get as close to the windward side, the right hand side of that hole as possible. He's not going to like it. He might even say some bad words to you, but as long as you give him time to move up, you can come in, sit next to him, and then you can he doesn't have the right to turn down into you, so you've got right of way there. And what you want is a bit of a hole to leeward, so that when it's time to actually start, you can bear away a little bit, get a bit of speed on, and then you'll be free. That's in theory anyway. So yeah, so if your timing's gone wrong, then there's still a chance to come behind the other boats, and there you are. Now you may have seen, if you watch the tornado videos from the World Championships, what I like to do, where is this? Yeah, this is coming on to the next point, actually. My next point is, don't get boxed in at the committee boat. The committee boat is the most popular place to start, because if you get this golden position on the start line where this guy is, then that means nobody can give you dirty wind, because nobody can get between you and the wind, and you've got the option to tack whenever you want. There's not going to be any other boats there. And then, you know, even if you're like 3 or 4 boats down from the committee boat, this is still a very desirable place to start because of the same reasons. Now, because of that, it means before the start, this area here can become very congested, which means if you are in there somewhere, then you are completely stuck. You've got nowhere to go. So I would say unless you really want to fight for the committee boat, don't be there. What I like, as I was saying, what you will have seen in the tornado race videos is what I like to do is to actually, on about 2.5 minutes, in fact, it will have been just when the videos were starting, I'll be sailing along the start line on port tack, and then this will, as we get away from the committee boat, this sort of congestion will thin out a bit. And so I'll reach in here, and then we'll look at the sort of spot that we want. And then, although this goes against don't tack within 2 minutes, on a boat with centerboards or dagger boards, you're less likely to fail your tack. But I'd still say after 1 minute to go, then you want to be on that starboard tack ready. So in fact, we'd probably come in down here. We go, okay, we're going to tack just there so that we're definitely not getting boxed in by the committee boat. Because if you do get boxed in there, then it's really disappointing just to be sat here. And this actually happened to me and Declan on the start of race leg 2 at the Archipelago raid, just because I totally mistimed the whole thing. It was not a good performance, but you just have to wait for him to go, wait for these guys to go, and then when these guys have gone, then okay, now it's my turn. All right, and then you're already down the fleet. Not so good. Of course, if you are really wanting to stay clear of all of the other boats, like if you're really new to racing or you're really not sure of your boat handling, then this is fine. You know, just to get a feel for the racing is be over here, and then just treat it like a queue and just put yourself in the back of the queue, and then you can follow the other boats. They'll show you which way to go, but not getting boxed in. If you do want to be fighting for the front row on the start line, that is important. Okay, and then the final one is not being sailed over the top of. So if we get our line up again, we only need a few boats this time. Here's our line up. And then maybe this is us just here. So with related to what we were saying before, because it's all related. But if these boats are starting to move forwards, if we don't sheet in early enough, these guys, yeah, this is a bit of a repeat of what we've already said, but these guys, once he's kind of drawn level with you like this, there should be a bit of stagger, because we're all, you know, the way that sailing works, we're kind of diagonal like this. But if this guy gets level, then you're in dirty wind, which means you've got two options. One option is just to sit and take it and you're going to drop back. The other option is, if you've got space here to bear away, try to get a bit more speed on. But the way to avoid it in the first place is, if he's moving up, you need to move up too. So make sure you sheet in early enough not to have this guy pull over the top. Okay. And then one other thing that we can do to help us with our start, if we just change the scale of our start line here, is before the start of the race, we want to get a transit. This is so that we can gauge where the start line is. Because if we're here on a bigger scale, it's quite difficult. You can't really look both ways at once. So yes, you can see the committee boat, but how do you know if we're on the line? Well, the way to do it is, hopefully there'll be land to one side or the other of the start line. So if we had land over here, then before the start of the race, we're just going to sail up and we're going to look through the buoy and through the mast, the one they've got the flags on, of the committee boat. And then we're going to see what that lines up with on land. And of course, as luck would have it, there will be a well-appointed church, of course. So what does that mean by taking this transit? Sometimes your transit is going to be much more ambiguous. It'll be like there'll be a load of trees, one of them's got slightly different coloured leaves, or there'll be a load of houses, one of them has got a different coloured roof, something like that. Don't use a bus or a car or a cow because they might move. Yeah, so what that means is when we then come to start, if we look through the committee boat and we can see that church lined up with the committee boat, we know that we're absolutely right on the line, probably a bit too critical. So what we're looking for safety, so we're going to do the safety line in blue, is if we're behind the line and we look through the mast of the committee boat, we can see that that church is behind that line of sight. And as we go forwards, the church is going to get closer. The opposite would be if we've gone too soon and we look through the committee boat, we'll see that the church is further forwards than the committee boat, which means we're actually over the line early. So we're looking for that church to be behind, might not be a church, just going to repeat that, that church is behind our line of sight. And that means we're not over the start line, which means when we come to start the race, and because what you always get on a start line, especially a long one, is what's called line sag, which is where in the middle of the line, because people aren't as sure where the line is, it's got this like sag in it. So if you're confident that you know where the line is, you could be further up than the sag. The sag will probably come with you a bit, as long as we're keeping our line of sight in front of the church. We know we're not over the line. And then 3, 2, 1, boom, and we're off. Okay, so there we go. That is a few ways to do better on the start. Thank you very much. Going to check in with everybody who's checking in. Hello to everyone who's checking in. We've got Paul online. Paul says, my crew wanted to do a pin on port start. It didn't end well. Yeah, so the pin on port start, high risk, but if you make it, your names will be on the scoreboard of bold starts for all time. Yeah, like we said, so that would be starting here. But if you don't make it around the first one, you can almost guarantee you're not going to make it around the second one, and you're just going to have to do a lot of ducking. But even if you are ducking, it's not a lost cause if it's a fleet which is quite good at starting. So if it's a high quality fleet, that's nothing against less quality fleets. But if you're sailing in an international race, probably if you were sailing in the Olympic Games, it wouldn't be quite as bad if you went to start on port and you didn't make it round the front of the first boat. The reason I say that is because in a mixed ability start, where you've got people of different levels of experience, you might have more boats sat like right back here. So you know, in the Olympic start, you could just go behind everyone. They'll gradually be going up like this. So you're going up like that. And if you desperately wanted to get over to the right side of the course, you'd be heading in the right direction, and you wouldn't actually have lost to the other boats so much, because if they want to go that way, they've got to tack, and that's going to cost them time. Whereas if there are some less experienced boats or more people who didn't make it into the front row, and you're trying to do that, then he's not going to let you go around the front. You're going to have to go behind him, and maybe there's someone even down here, and you might not even make it through the start line. High risk strategy, yes, but glory is forever. Nice one, Paul. We got Kevin on board in Illinois, I believe. Yeah, 30 miles per hour wind predicted for Sunday. Time for a speed stick run. Oh, yes. And, you know, I'm hoping that, well, I dare say a lot of people in Florida at the moment won't have electricity. So those of you who would usually have been tuning in are not there. So I'm hoping that you're all okay and everything is strapped down tight. And not just your thing strapped down tight, but the thing next to your thing needs to be strapped down tight as well, because it's all good and well. Your let's say your thing is your boat's fine, but then Jim's boat from 5 boats up, which he didn't quite manage to tie down as securely, has just gone flying through the air and landed on your boat. Then it's a good reason to be quite public spirited at these times of mega wind, is to look at everybody else's stuff as well as your own. They will thank you for it, but also it's less chance that their thing is going to hit your thing, which is better. But I hope everybody's okay. And yeah, tight lines, as I believe the fishermen say. But I think it is a worthy thing to say at this time. So good luck with that, Kevin. Yeah, we've got good forecast for wind here as well. I know we've had several good forecasts for wind here in Vasiliki of late, but with it being really late in the season, it means we're not getting the heat to drive the thermal, which means it is less likely we actually get this champagne flat water conditions here in Vasiliki Bay. But it does look fairly promising the next couple of days. And I've still got my eye on that top spot on the water speed app, 6 weeks of speed competition. Just going to, you know, we can do this. We can check it out right now live. What is the current situation? Oh, there's a new button on the water speed app that says challenges. We hit challenges, and there we are. Joyrider TV, 6 weeks speed, 15 days to go. Oh, I've dropped into 5th. All right, something's happened here. There's all right, somebody sailing at Navarre Beach, which I believe, or Navarre Beach, which I believe is in Florida, has somehow hit 39.2 knots. Okay, not sure about this one. Might require a steward's inquiry. Second place and third place, I believe, are foiling boats on that leaderboard. Yeah, so the water speed speed competition is a bit of a trial run, I have to say. And at the moment where it's not totally that you can enter without entering what craft you were sailing, it means that that guy could have been windsurfing, could have been on a motorbike, who knows, but or jet ski perhaps. So it's going to be improved, the next version of that competition, when it will be available for Android devices as well. Won't that be a good day? All right, we got Benny on board in Sweden. Hello, Benny. Great to have you with us. Best time of the week. Oh, yes, you know that it is, because we can talk about sailing and then we can think about doing it if your lake hasn't yet frozen over. Fingers crossed. All right, Dave's on board. Hello, Dave. Great to have you with us. Office Hands Dave, of course, who is now got 2 strong entries on the Global Speed Stick. Yes, the Global Speed Stick, far more established, and it's a very sensible, everybody plays fair kind of event. So if you're not yet on the Speed Stick and you're going to go and send it, then get on the Speed Stick. If you're getting on the Water Speed leaderboard, get on the Speed Stick as well, because under the banner of why not. And I just have to announce, just updated it before going live, we've just hit 100 boats for this year on the Speed Stick, which I think is very nice. I'm happy with that. All right. Paul says, I sail with a guy that likes to do dirty tricks. There we go. He will rush the line on port tack, turn on top of you, and then push you over the line into the race committee boat. Very annoying. All right, let's just see if I can visualize what he's doing. So what will he do? So let's say you're here, because that would be the race committee boat here. He will rush the line on port tack, turn on top of you. Oh, kind of like this, and then push you up. Yeah, that is pretty dirty. How do you avoid that? I think by not trying to get as close to the committee boat, because the thing is, before the start of a race, this boat here has got the rights to push you up as high as he wants to push you up. So that is just one of those things. So protecting yourself against that this is especially going to happen in monohull racing, where people aren't as nice to each other as in catamaran racing. But just to spot it happening, if you know that's the sort of thing that he does, maybe just bear off a little bit before he comes to tack in. And then maybe he'll think twice. Or again, if you drop your traveller all the way out, your boat sits more across the wind when parked, which means maybe he'll think twice before getting in there. Or when he says up, 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 you can go up and pull in front of him a bit, and he's in your dirty wind. Perhaps one of those could be a potential solution. But certainly don't take it lying down, and keep an eye on him. If there's one particular guy, we need to stop this. This is not a good day. All right, we've got Declan on board. Declan is in the live chat speaking Swedish. Okay, nice to have you with us, Declan. Always a pleasure. Scott is dropping it in the slot. Good morning to everybody in the Joyrider community from Scott. We've got Derek on board from BC. What would that be? British Columbia in Canada. Answers on a postcard. Any solution for a Hobie 16 hull that has soaked up some water and got heavy? Yeah, we did actually have this in Ocean Springs, Mississippi, back at the end of March this year. One of the Hobie 14s, I think, was, I can't remember how much overweight it was, but it was like more than 30 kilos over. And it's not the fiberglass that soaks up the water, but inside your hulls there are foam polystyrene blocks, and these are more likely to have soaked up the water. So if this is our, I don't even know if this is worth drawing, but if that's our hull, inside the hull we've got a number of blocks, made of polystyrene, and when they get put into the hull, when the hull's being closed, they're in these like they're vacuum packed in bags. But then if your boat's getting a bit older, these bags are quite likely to have perished, like they've just started falling apart. And that means that if your boat does get a decent amount of water in it, this foam can soak up the water. And I suppose the least invasive way of sorting it out would be to just bake your boat in the sun for as long as you can, just to see if you can get that water to evaporate. But the solution that was used at Ocean Springs with the Hobie 14s, which would be a better solution but more intrusive, would be to actually remove the deck of the boat, remove the heavy blocks, ideally put in some other foam flotation into the hull, put the deck back on, and then off we go. But that is some pretty major surgery. Now, you may ask, why would there be foam buoyancy inside the hulls? It's basically if you get a big, dirty, great big hole in the hull, and your hull becomes completely, what would you call it, water, filled with water, it will still float a bit because it's got this foam buoyancy inside. And I would imagine that this is done as standard to comply with some regulations where the boats are built. There we go. So not an easy solution, but I would certainly try cooking your boat if you've got any sun, but probably not in Canada these days just now. However, somewhere where it is going to be sunny and some of the best sailing, yeehaw, that you will experience for a long time is actually, we're looking forwards to next year from the 9th to the 16th of June. Get your pen out, put this in your diary right now. We're heading to Texas for the Nacra 50th anniversary regatta. Yes. So start thinking about it now. Can you get hold of a Nacra for those dates in June to go to Texas and make this one of the best events, if not the best event of the year? F-18s, you need to go there. If wouldn't it be great to have an F-18 fleet of all of the different generations of Nacra F-18? This would be so cool. If I could be there, I would be there. I'd want to be on an F-18, maybe not an Evolution, maybe something a few grades older, so then I had a bit more of an excuse if I didn't do very well. No, of course not. But put this in your diary, June the 9th, Texas. Don't know exactly where in Texas, but it's not a big place, is it? Nacra 50th anniversary regatta. Yes, amazing. I think that is certainly going to be one of the hot tickets in the USA for next year. Continuing, had a comment from DVE question 8809. This is in response to one of the Capsize writing videos. To be honest, the second one I did about going for the Hobie salute writing method, this was a sort of only a half serious attempt because I kind of knew it wasn't going to work. And that has actually been, get this, you're not going to believe this, it's been in the time that it has been out, like since release, it's been the most popular video on Joyrider TV of all time. Yeah, sometimes that sort of thing happens. I think it's because of a very nice looking thumbnail picture and some very well chosen wording on thumbnail. The question mark makes it not a lie. That's what I thought. You know, you've got to sell it, haven't you? But DVE says, can't you put the writing line through the eye of your trapeze wire? This allows you to pull the mast up under better leverage. Now, okay, so let's have this is our mast, capsized boat. Have we got anything else we can use here? Yeah, there we go. There's our front beam. There's our hulls. So we're capsized. So this has been suggested before, these kind of things where this is where we're standing to right the boat. And we've got the righting line coming down here. So does it make any difference if we have the line, let's just say for argument's sake, so DVE is said onto the trapeze line, but to go one further, what about if we just had it so the righting line was tied to the top of the mast? I actually, we did do some testing on this and it makes no difference at all. And that is because what this is doing is exactly the same thing as the shroud. So by having the righting line going, this is my opinion, it may be wrong, of course, but I'm pretty sure it's right. By having the righting line going around the hull, it's tied off to the dolphin striker. So where the righting line, all of this is pulling against, is pulling the shroud, and the shroud is pulling the mast. And by having it go to the top of the mast, I would actually say we're probably losing leverage because of the angle. So perhaps even better would be, there might be a point down this way on the mast, like maybe if we were sailing a boat with spreaders, although it might be quite destructive. Let's not try this. Not going to try this, just saying that now. But to have the righting line tied on to the spreader, which has got a better angle there, maybe that would actually lift the mast more effectively. But otherwise, the righting line is pulling the shroud, same as the trapeze wire, more arguably, but it's me doing the arguing this time, more leverage than the top of the mast. And that is my opinion on that one. There we go. All right, Scott in the live chat, technique for getting the water off the jib when writing. Technique for getting the water off the jib when writing to get the wind under it to help lift the mast. Is there a technique? The only technique I could think of for this would actually be to physically go and grab it by the jib sheets, lift it up, get it out of the water. If you've got your boat pointing the right way, which should be with, if this is the front of the boat we're looking at here, which would be with the wind blowing straight on like this, then in fact, we've got the Office Hands Dave Mark 1 model. So this would be prototype model. This would be, can we line this up? Oh, it's not easy. Having to think 3D and backwards. Like, anyway, with the wind blowing straight on, then the wind should get underneath the jib. This is why having the boat pointing the right way makes such a big difference, because the wind blows under the sails, and because there's a bit of curve in the sail, it's actually going to lift the boat up. That is what I think. All right, Declan says only rig tension would be a factor in the calculation regarding writing effort. Yeah, what you could do, could you? No. No, in fact, I was just thinking, should have thought about this already. If you're on a boat with easy to adjust rig tension, Hobie 16, and you're in this position, would loosening the rig tension actually work? Answer, no, because loosening it, because the weight is pushing onto the mast and this hull is pushing this way, it's going to go more like this. So this hull is actually going to be more on the wrong side of the fulcrum. So perhaps even to help you right your boat, if you're struggling, it's probably going to have a very marginal effect, but tightening the rig up would actually bring the mast more straight with the boat, which means the hull is becoming more the right side of the fulcrum, where the whole thing is pivoting, which is right here. And then as soon as we've got the hull the right side of that, then we've got the weight of the hull to help us right the boat. So there we go. That's what I think. All right. Next question in the preloaded. This one comes from Andrew, who has got an old Hobie 16 with an old jib halyard system. And the old jib halyard system, basically, oh yeah, this is the prototype. There we go. These are going to be going into production at some point, but very nice. Made by Office Hands Dave. All right, so the jib halyard system that Andrew's got we've got our forestay pigtail kind of thing, and then that is going on to a block which has got a becket on the bottom, and then the forestay continues under the becket, which means that the jib halyard just runs once over here, then down the mast. So it's a one-to-one jib halyard, so no purchase at all there. So we need some purchase to be able to get the right amount of tension on the rig on a 16. So there's a few ways we could do this, but perhaps the easiest way would be to get a or would it would be to this is wire, by the way, to start with. So we want to get rid of the wire and change it for some like 5mm high quality pre-stretched rope with a Dyneema core, so it won't stretch. Right, I should have done a bit of thinking about this before time, but I didn't. And we're going to have a block here. So what we're going to want to do, this is going to improve things quite a lot, is we want to tie the end of this rope. Let's do this in blue, so we've got a different color on the table. We're going to tie the end of it off there. Then it's going to go through. We're going to go through this way, through the block, and then down through here. So we've now got a 2-to-1. So we've doubled it. Ideally, we would have a bit more. I think we've got a 4-to-1 on the modern. Well, it's actually more than that with the Aussie jib system. But then we could also do something down at this end as well, whether we change this or not. So, by the way, this block here would then be attached to the top of the sail as we pull it up. There's the sail there. And then we could have this line, if it was kind of Aussie style, we'd have 2 blocks which could be riveted to the mast. And then this would go through here, and then down to the cleat where we tie it off. So something like that. But I would certainly start off by getting rid of the wire part of the halyard, get a block which will shackle on to the top of the jib. Better still, in fact, we could go a little bit crazy here. All right, I'm just going to start again. Hope everybody's enjoying this as much as I am. We could actually, onto this becket on this block, we could put, you're not going to believe this, a second block, smaller one. It's going to share the becket with the forestay, but that's okay. The forestay is not busy when the jib is up. And then we'd have this block onto the top of the jib here, and then we'd need a becket on that block as well. I don't think I've got a block to hand just here. No, I don't. So what we'd now do is this would be where it ties off, or in fact, if we start the mast, so it's going up the mast, down here, round here, round here, and then it ties off here. And that is actually the same purchase. So it's 3-to-1, not 4-to-1, as a modern Hobie 16. So that will give you the right amount of purchase. Then if you want to drill some holes in your mast, put some blocks on the mast as well, that's going to help. But this, all you need to do to make this happen is get 2 blocks to add to what you've already got. I think that is a sensible solution. Thank you, Andrew, for your question. Very good. All right. So back to the live chat, where I believe Declan has got some more. There is a technique where you release the shroud. Yeah, which yes. So what Declan's saying is there is a system, and I believe you can actually buy the kit at Murray's in San Diego, where you loosen the top shroud. What shroud would it be? The top, yeah, the top shroud. Let's have our mast back again. There's the boat on its side. Sorry, diagram quality has gone down a little bit. And with this, I think it's called like an easy writing kit or something. What you can do is with this kit, you can release the shroud that's here, and it goes on an extension cable. And what that means is this hull can then move to the right side of the fulcrum where the boat is resting, which means you've then got the weight of that hull to help you bring the boat back upright. Now, the issue that I have with this system, which everybody has who thinks about this system, is this makes the rig incredibly loose. What does it mean if our rig is incredibly loose? It means we haven't got that tension holding the mast to the mast base, which means these kits do come supplied with some sort of let's tie the mast to the dolphin striker kind of thing to make sure it doesn't pop out. But it's still a little bit sketchy, but I would like to try it. So perhaps that could be one of my off-season projects, is to make my own quick release shroud thingy, which I will experiment with in very shallow water. So if it all goes horribly wrong, I'll be able to just drag it back in upside down. Yes, agreed. All right, Scott says, why not use turnbuckles for the fine tuning of the shrouds versus chain plates? I can tell you for why. It's because most catamarans come supplied with chain plates because they're about 1/5 of the cost. of a turnbuckle, or what we call in the UK, we'd call that a bottle screw, where you screw it to adjust the tension. The bottle screws are much better because you've got an infinite amount of accuracy of how tight you want to put it. Perhaps not quite as much range, but they are much, much more expensive. So that is why the chain plate is the industry standard. And I think if you were competing in, again, the Hobie 16 class, you wouldn't be allowed to compete if you had a bottle screw or turnbuckle adjuster on your shrouds. All right, and Declan adds heavier and don't respond well to being under constant tension. Okay, so last question in the preloaded department. This one has just come in today, actually. This is from Malcolm, who he's already heard about the Nacra 50th anniversary regatta in June next year. So he's just moved from the UK to Texas and wants to sail on the lakes in Texas. What is the right cat to get? Malcolm's quite a big guy. He's 6'3", which I don't know what that is in centimeters, but that is tall. And he would usually be sailing with between 100 and 200 kilograms, which would be, is that 220 and 440 pounds of weight on board, mostly for recreational sailing, but after a while to get into some racing maybe. Well, there is a lot of choice, so let's just go straight in with the obvious and most talked about, the Hobie 16. The Hobie 16 would be very good for single-handed sailing. It also comes in at the most broad, with the most broad spectrum of how much you can get one for. You could get one for under $1,000 and upwards, depending on how much you want to spend on a boat. The 16 will take all that weight, but it just wouldn't be particularly swift in light winds with 200 kilograms on board. So if we're going down the kind of old design boats route, the next, now in the history of Hobie Cat, there was a lot of heavier sailors back in the day who said, this Hobie Cat that you've made, this Hobie 16, it doesn't carry the weight quite so well. So Hobie Cat, well, here's a Hobie 18. This carries the weight much better. So if we're looking for an older boat that you can pick up for less money second hand, then a Hobie 18, very good choice, because it's got a kind of similar vibe to it as the 16, but it's bigger. More volume in the hulls means it will carry weight better. You can also, with the Hobie 18, you can have the Magnum wings, like the picnic table wings, which really make it a great boat for cruising, for having like a party sailing with like 6 people on the boat. Yeah, really good fun times there. So hull, beam, picnic tables. Oh yeah, party boat, definitely. But what else could we choose? So we need something with a bit of volume and some size. What about the Hobie GETAWAY? Yes, it's a lower performance boat. It's made from plastic, so it's going to last forever. Perhaps not quite as high performance as the ones previously mentioned, and certainly a heavier boat to pull out of the water when you've finished, but another viable option, the GETAWAY. Now, what would be the right boat, considering next June in Texas, would be something from Nacra. Now, if we want something more simple without dagger boards, we'd want a 500 or a 570, or does the 5.7 also have the skeg hulls? To be honest, I'm not quite as fluent with the Nacra range of catamarans, but I think the 500 carries weight a lot better than the Hobie Cat does. So another worthy boat to consider. But what else could we put on the list? I think my list has almost come to an end there. But if you are watching this later, put it in the comments. What would be another good choice of boat in the USA, in Texas, to have the versatility to sail it with either 220 or 440 pounds of weight on board, and something that is going to keep the interest going. So something that isn't completely easy to sail, but is going to just keep on giving. Thanks very much for your help on that one. All right. Yeah, but I think if you're willing to go for a new boat, I think the Nacra 570 looks like a good choice. It's quite a big boat for one person, but when you've got two people on there, looks like a really good, well-made, quite a big boat, more than 18 feet long. So yeah, that is on the upper size of what we'd be looking at. But I would look at something between 16 and 18 feet probably, and not too heavy. Because if one of the things to consider, if you're sailing single-handed a lot, getting the boat out of the water afterwards is a potential issue. Okay, so if there's no further questions or suggestions, then thanks very much for tuning in. Yeah, fingers crossed for a bit of sport. Tight lines to everybody who is experiencing Mr. Hurricane Milton. So I hope you're all okay out there, and I'll see you soon. Sunday, new video. We're going back to tacking the Hobie 14. I hope everybody else is as excited about that as I am. Channel members can already see it, by the way. There we go. All right, see you soon. Thank you very much for coming, and good luck.